What's up? This is EJ Stewart.
What if I dropped 40 days, 40 nights?
One, you can't do it.
All you are your words. If there's anything you learned about me, I'm gonna keep it 100 with you.
Every morning. Every
40 days this year.
My skill shot will hold for your city for 40 days, 40 nights.
Rest in peace to all my ops.
For 40 days. If I can do that, then everything will be okay.
You're the guy who can't finish a sandwich. You think you can go 40 days? This isn't normal!
Oh, you're wrong, brother. I'm gonna go the distance.
Let's go! Let's go is right. What's up? This is EJ Stewart. You're listening and watching 40 Days and 40 Nights. We're up to day 3 of this journey where I'll be talking about all things in sports, pop culture, and more here on YouTube. Also streaming live on X. Also streaming live on Instagram. Again, if you want to follow this stream, follow me, support this cause, support this journey I'm on. All the information regarding social media and where to subscribe to the channel is all right below there on your ticker. We got a lot to get to on this show. We'll talk about the latest Giannis antics as the Bucks suffer a pretty embarrassing defeat last night to the Minnesota Timberwolves. And the embarrassment went beyond just the loss. It was Giannis Antetokounmpo not being so happy with how his fans were acting and the Bucks fans were acting during that home loss. So we'll talk about that. We'll also talk about some stuff happening in the NBA as well regarding Anthony Davis. It was a very confusing afternoon if you were following the Anthony Davis situation with his hand injury where he has ligament damage, which we thought required surgery, but then didn't preclude him being traded even though he was supposed to be out for the season. And then Anthony Davis got involved and started talking about how this was all false, and now he's not out for the season, and now he's not getting surgery. So we got a lot to break down in terms of what's going on with Anthony Davis. We'll also talk about some college hoops because, like I said, I want to get to everything I love to talk about. I love some college hoops and some NBA draft stuff. So we're going to talk about a major development in college basketball last night. Number 2 goes down. Kansas beats Iowa State, undefeated Iowa State team. Kansas being led by Darren Peterson, one of the absolute best players in college basketball. He is a surefire top 3 or 4 pick. He could be the number 1 pick in this draft this year. So we'll talk about his performance, talk about the Jayhawks and what this means for college basketball now that you got one of the undefeated is going down. And we'll talk about LeBron James because he was back at it again yesterday. This time he was in cleanup mode because we talked about the conversations and the stuff that Rich Paul was saying yesterday. I tried to play for you some of that sound again of him talking about maybe we should trade Austin Reaves, maybe we should get Jaren Jackson Jr. And we have gotten now reporting that the Lakers not too happy about it. Not happy about it at all. And LeBron James perhaps doing some cleanup duty as he responds to these reports. Also, some interesting details about an exchange that may have happened between Rich Paul, who's LeBron James' agent, and Austin Reaves' agent earlier this week. So again, this has become a very interesting story to follow. So we got a lot to get to, man. It's going to be a fun show. 40 days, 40 nights. Your boy EJ Stewart rocking with you this morning on this beautiful, beautiful Wednesday morning. Let's begin talking about the Oklahoma City Thunder, who made a statement. No question last night. They made a statement. They faced the San Antonio Spurs, a team that had beat them 3 times in a row. And these 3 wins weren't just 3 normal wins. They were convincing wins. They were wins that had no choice but to make you pause and say, this is a team in the Western Conference that appeared to be untouchable. They looked so much better than their competition. They had started 30-1. I think the one loss being the Spurs for a while. And you started to think maybe this is going to be a special season. Maybe this is a special team. Maybe we're looking at a dynasty. And here you had the San Antonio Spurs who beat them in the regular season, then beat them in the NBA Cup, keeping them out of the NBA Cup Finals in Vegas, and then beat them again on Christmas Day. And it led to Shai Gilgeous-Alexander, what I thought was him essentially putting out the bat signal to his teammates when he made the comments being like, A team has beat us 3 times in a row. That means they're better than us, clearly. Does Shai Gilgeous-Alexander think that the Spurs are better than him? No. But I do think that was a message to his team through the media to be like, hey, guys, let's go. Okay? Like, I know this is NBA regular season. I know, when they play us, this is a big deal. It's kind of a regional rivalry. We're the team they're trying to take down. They're the other young, exciting team in this league. And in many ways, they match up quite well, and they take these matchups personally. We know Victor Wembanyama versus Chet Holmgren always is a personal matchup. So I think that was Shai's way of saying, they're taking this too seriously, and we're not taking it seriously enough, and they're embarrassing us. So yeah, I'm going to go out there in public and say that this team is better than us, clearly, because we can't handle them right now. I think it was a motivational tactic, and I believed it worked. And then you got to give props to Shai, because I think that worked. I think the antennas for this game you watched last night, Spurs, Thunder, awesome that this is was a marquee Tuesday night game on NBC, on Peacock. Felt like a big fight field because of all the stuff that's been happening, some of the trash talk, all the things that's been going on. You got to give props to Shai, because not only did he kind of talk the talk, not necessarily in disrespecting Spurs, but clearly, again, I think sending a message to his own team, being like, come on, guys, what are we doing here? He not only did he talk the talk, he walked the walk. He was phenomenal last night, 34 points, dominant third quarter in which the Spurs were outscored by the Thunder 40-24. He ends up, again, with 34 points. And he was the best player on the floor, which had not really been the case in a lot of these games. There were games where Wemby was the best player. There were games where Stephon Castle had made big plays. Like, the Spurs, again, had their way with this team. I thought the difference in the game last night, to me, was clearly the defensive intensity and the physicality picked up in a major way for the Oklahoma City Thunder, which at the end of the day is their bread and butter. And at the end of the day we can talk about Shai, we can talk about Jalen Williams, and those guys are obviously, if they don't score and they don't do the things they do offensively, the Thunder are always going to have a tough time. But at the end of the day, this is, to me, still a team that is as good as it is because of how great they defend. And a lot of the defense that they play and why it's so great is because of how physical they are. And I thought that the broadcast last night, Reggie Miller, I thought he actually made some good points. I know that sounds a little ironic coming from me as a Knicks fan, but I think he did make some good points where, the Thunder are the most physical defensive team in the NBA. And their mindset is they can't call every foul. It's a daring mindset, and I think now that you're the champ, you can definitely play with fire a lot more in that regard, because we know the superstars get called, we know championship teams get called. So the Thunder will put their hands on you, they'll beat you up, they'll get in your grill, and they're going to assume that once they set the tone for how the game is going to be played, the refs then will adjust accordingly, which is what's happening. It works, and it's been working for the last 2 years. It worked a couple years ago when they had the number one seed in the West. It worked last year when they had the number one seed in the West and won the NBA championship, and it's working again this year. But I think the Spurs, because of their speed, because of their athleticism, and I think, again, because maybe the Thunder, I don't want to say taking them lightly, because I don't think the Thunder are going in the game being like, this is whatever. But I think the Spurs were playing with an intensity in these earlier matchups and a focus that they wanted to send a message to the Thunder. Message got received loud and clear. Thunder send it back last night. And this, to me, is what the NBA needs. I know it's not going to be the biggest markets in terms of, it's not LA, it's not Boston, it's not New York, it's not Miami, and so on and so forth. But I do think when it comes to how can the league kind of get the Oklahoma City Thunder to be a team that people can kind of really rally around in a major way. And I'm not someone, listen, I'm doing this show, we're going to talk hoops, we're going to talk basketball. I'm not going to do the whole I'm going to defend the NBA gimmick here. I don't feel like that's, I can, but I don't feel like that's really necessary. I want to actually celebrate the game and talk about the game. But I do think this is great for the sport in that you will now have, maybe not the biggest markets, but I think you have your marquee rivalry probably for the next few years. You got to hope that Victor Wembanyama can stay healthy, which is always, just when I watch him play, is always going to be a concern. It feels like he's always going down with some kind of nick and knack. Yesterday, he goes down with a knee injury. It was not serious. He banged knees with Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. But you see a big fella go down and start holding his knee, and you think of the worst things. And he's had, again, nicks and knacks all throughout his career. Thank God, the blood clot thing last year that sent him away for the rest of the season and cost him a Defensive Player of the Year award. That obviously, is not a physical, injury thing. That's more of a health thing. It seems like he's gotten past that, so that's great. But if you have Victor Wembanyama, who is definitely box office, definitely a star. I'm watching the game last night, and this is how I know he's crossed over, because I'm watching the game last night. And I've told you guys about my lovely fiance Andrea, and she comes in. We're watching the game. Does not know a lot about sports. Does not know a lot about basketball. She knows more about the Knicks than anyone else because I'm a Knicks fan. But that's kind of where things end when it comes to how she sees the game and stuff like that. She comes in, she sits down, and Victor's got the ball, and she's like, "Oh my God!" And you say, "Oh wait, that's Wemby." Like, she said, "Oh my God," because again, you watch him on the court, and you're like, this is something I've never seen before. A 7-foot guy who's out at the 3-point line, and then now it's registering that this guy is famous. This guy is a superstar. This guy is a megastar. It's crossing over now with folks who don't even follow the NBA on a regular basis, don't follow basketball on a regular basis, how big a deal he was. So when that happened, I took note. Okay, that's important. Because again, if we're talking about how to make the Oklahoma City Thunder more palatable to the casual NBA fan, if you can't do it with players on the team or how they play, which is, I guess, debatable, and we'll continue to see if they can, reach that precipice. If you can't make it there, you could make it with, okay, give them a extremely compelling rival that people would want to see, people know, and give the other team a megastar. And they're not giving them a market, but you are giving them someone that people want to see, and that's Victor Wembanyama, who, again, last night showed once again he absolutely takes these matches with Chet Holmgren personally. The Thunder obviously played extremely well. Chet Holmgren didn't play quite well. And I do think, and when we get back to the basketball aspect of this and why this potential playoff series, if it does happen, and I'm praying it happens. I don't think that it's a... Right now, the Thunder are the number 1 seed. The Spurs are the number 2 seed. So that would mean that it had to happen in conference finals. I am not convinced that the Spurs definitely get through the first 2 rounds of the playoffs to get to the Thunder in the West Conference Finals if need be. I think that a team typically, it's not always, but typically, when you get to the playoffs for your first time as a top team, the first one never goes that great. There's always a growing pain that's going to come with being in the NBA playoffs. We saw it with the Kings a couple years ago when they were a 2 seed. We saw it with the Thunder a couple years ago when they were a 1 seed, got bounced in the second round. It just doesn't work out the way you think. Even though you have this great regular season record, even though you got all this talent, the playoff basketball is so much different, and it's so much of a learning curve. And they have a coach who will be going through it, and Mitch Johnson for the first time. You need to go through it to understand really what it's about, to then the next year really make your run. So I'm not convinced the Spurs get to the conference finals to face the Thunder, which means, like, hey, they'd have to maybe, if my dream scenario happens, maybe they fall a couple of spots in the standings so they can see them in a second round matchup potentially. They're not going to see them in a first round matchup, obviously. But could it be a 1-4 matchup? That's possible. I think that's potentially a situation. And again, the Spurs will have to slip up a little bit in the second half of the season coming up. But if it does happen, the Chet Holmgren Wemby thing is a problem. Because I don't think that Chet can score on Wemby. I think Chet's an extremely important player for the Thunder. He is their third banana. He's their third wheel. And what makes him so impactful, beyond the defense. The defense is what makes him super impactful. He's one of the best defensive players in the NBA. Awesome shot blocker, can guard multiple positions. We know what Chet's impact is on that side. But I think on offense, what makes him so impactful is he is extremely efficient. He does not need a ton of shots to make an impact offensively. You don't have to draw up a ton of plays for him. And yet he can end up a game and he shoots 7 for 9 and has 20 points. Like, that's he shoots a high percentage. He gets lobs, he gets alley-oops, he gets dunks, he gets things around the rim. He gets little chippies here and there. And you look up, and not only does Chet have 4 blocks this game, you look up and, oh man, now he's at 18 points. He's 8 for 10. You're like, when you're playing the Thunder with all the other things you're dealing with, and you look at the box score, sometimes you don't even know how much Chet has scored, or he'll get his points in bunches. Like, he can go a game where he hasn't scored for 10, 15 minutes, but he'll get a 3, and then he'll get an alley-oop, then he'll get a run out, then he'll get another dump off, and now he's got quick 10 points, and now you're calling timeout, you're down 20. Like, he's super impactful in that way. But Wemby's presence, guarding him, where he seems to erase him. Where Chet, when he does have one-on-one opportunities and he is able to try to make plays for himself, he's struggling against Wemby's length because Chet just doesn't ever see this length. There is no other player in the NBA where he has to worry about his shot getting blocked like he did last night. There's no other player in the NBA where he has to worry about trying to finish oversized at the rim. He's always usually the tallest guy on the court and the most athletic guy on the court, or a combination of both. So the fact that he's not going against somebody who's more athletic, who's quicker, who's taller, who's bigger, who's stronger than him, he's having trouble. And he's had trouble every game they played. He had trouble again last night, in my opinion. And I do think that if they play in a playoff series, that would be a concern. Because I don't think that that's going to change. I think that with Victor Wembanyama is going to continue to have that matchup problem with Chet Holmgren. So if you're the Thunder, you win last night. But I think Daigneault and I think the whole team is going to have to figure out ways to unlock Chet. Last night, obviously, Isaiah Hartenstein's been hurt, so there has been no Isaiah Hartenstein. That really allows Wemby to really focus solely on Chet Holmgren. The Thunder played very small last night, which also may be a little bit of a key to beating the Spurs. The Spurs, besides Victor Wembanyama, actually aren't that big a team. They only play one other true big, really, in Luke Cornett. Everyone else, they're kind of like a mirror image of the Thunder in the sense that they're all very switchable. They're all very long. In terms of you got a bunch of 6'7", 6'6" guys all over the place. But they're not a team trotting out, a traditional 5 and a traditional 4, all 6'10" or 6'11" and above. That's not how they play. So in some ways, I think the Thunder getting away from having to play the double bigs because they didn't have them available, I think actually may have been a benefit because I think it allowed them to kind of play the Spurs at what they think is the Spurs game, but it's actually the Thunder's game. I think the Thunder love playing small. They love being super switchable. And I think they guarded a lot better last night. I think that they were way better on the dribble penetration. I think we saw the last games they played, De'Aaron Fox, Harper, Castle, they were just getting to the rim. They were getting in the paint. And if you get into the paint in the NBA and you can spray it out, you're going to cause damage. Julian Champagny has become an excellent three-point shooter, and he was making them pay a little bit last night. But being able to not have to go to Hartenstein and you were able to play a lot smaller allowed them, I think, to even be much more sound defensively on the perimeter, which is what you're going to need to beat the Spurs. If you can't contain the ball, you're dead against the Spurs because their guards are too fast. They're too good at finishing at the rim. And it puts you in so many disadvantages when you have a guy, again, like Wemby, who could be in the dunker spot, who could be spotting up for three, who could be wherever he is on the court and be a major threat. You can't take him away, and then also you can't stop the ball, you're cooked, which is why they got blown out in the first 3 games these teams played. Thunder defense was much better. They obviously shot the ball much better. It wasn't a great shooting first half, which again spoke to, I think, the importance of the game. I think both teams knew that this was going to be a statement one way or the other. Spurs beat the Thunder for a 4th time. There's no longer the blinking, flashing light that I was talking about that Shea was throwing out there, bat signal, so to speak. I mean, we're talking about blaring horns, all the kind of signals and signs you could think of to get out the word, hey, man, this is a problem. We can't beat this team. What the hell is going on, and what are we going to do about this? So they knew how important it was, and I think the Spurs knew the opportunity to be like, hey, we could beat this team a 4th time in a row. We're sending a serious message that if you see us in the playoffs, you know what time it is. So I think the first half reflected that, where the shooting wasn't great, but in part because the defense was picked up. This was not, I think, in my opinion, your typical NBA January regular season game. That wasn't the vibe I got. That wasn't the vibe I felt in the 3rd quarter when the Thunder, who are always so good coming out at halftime, really said that we're going to turn up the screws here and tighten up. And I thought Shea said, I'm going to take it upon myself to really extend this lead and let's see what these guys are about. And Spurs didn't have an answer. So a big win for the Oklahoma City Thunder. I don't know when these teams play again, but these matchups are becoming must-watch. I didn't get, when I did my show last night, night 2 of 40 Days, 40 Nights, usually I like to go through the NBA schedule. I didn't actually go through the schedule last night, but as soon as I saw that it was Thunder Spurs, I knew exactly what I was doing. I was like, oh, we know where this is going. We know what time it is here. So, again, they will play again. This will be the 5th game of the season. Not too long from now, actually. They'll play again Wednesday, February 4th in San Antonio on ESPN, 9:30 Eastern start. So that's been an awesome thing about these games, too, that these games have been kind of bunched up a little bit. Like, it's not like the playoff series, obviously, because there's so many games that have happened in between. But like, it's rare you see teams play 5 games in a span of essentially 2 months. Their first game was on December 13th, and the first 3 games were in a span of 2 weeks. They played on the 13th, they played on the 23rd, and they played on the 25th. So they were really bunched up earlier in the season, and then here now you're talking about a game now in January, and then a game now in February. So again, you have played now 5 games in less than 2 months. So a great real sample size of what these teams are going to be about. But yeah, I thought great win for the Thunder. One minor concern I think would be Chet Holmgren's impact last night. He did have his 3 blocks. He did have his 10 rebounds, which defense again he can impact the game. But 8 points, 1 for 4 from the field. Only 4 field goal attempts for a guy who's your third leading scorer, a guy who, again, we're talking about trying him, possibly being an all-star this year. He's averaging on 18 points a game on shooting 57% from the field. He goes 1 for 4 in a game. Typically, you think that's a Thunder loss. It was not, because Shai Gilgeous-Alexander in the third quarter said, we're not losing this game, and I'm taking it over. But it's going to be a fun storyline to follow throughout the year is, can the Spurs keep pace with the Thunder in terms of the standings, and is this a possible matchup we see in the playoffs? I'll just show you guys quickly the standings here in the Western Conference. Again, let's assume this sharing the screen works, because it's always a little bit of a hit and miss deal. Okay, that's a black screen, which is not good, but I think if I do this, it'll work. Let's see. Oh, there you go. Yeah. So so you can see here. So Thunder right now, 34. Oops, now it's black again. Hold up, let me see if I can fix that. Let me try one more time. There you go. So Thunder, 34-7 now on the season. After that little kind of mini slump they were in, they've now won 8 of their last 10. They're on a 4-game winning streak. Spurs now slumping a little bit. They've now lost 2 in a row. They've won only 4 of their last 10. So Thunder recreating the distance in the standings. Thunder at a certain point, the Spurs started to creep up on them because the Thunder weren't playing so great. Now back up to 6.5 games. That matchup and that fight for that number 2 seed is far from over. There are, in my opinion, I think you could consider maybe 5 teams who legitimately still have a shot at this. The difference between the Spurs at 2 and the Suns right now, who are currently in the play-in situation, is just 3 games. So still a lot to be played in the Western Conference. The Western Conference we knew was going to be a gauntlet. It has lived up to that in every way. I don't think it's as deep as people thought it was going to be. I do think once you get past those 7 teams, everyone else is trash. The Warriors are kind of hovering around 500. Portland, up and coming team, nice team, but still not obviously a championship contender in any way. Memphis, they may end up being in a fire sale boat soon. We'll talk about Jaren Jackson again today. And obviously, Mavs again, fire sale soon potentially. Clippers, they've been a disaster most of the season, though. They're trying to creep back up. They've won 8 out of 10. I could not understand why the Clippers were so bad to start this season. It's like they came into the season completely comatose. I don't know if Chris Paul was that much of a disaster and that much of a problem that they couldn't afford to win games while he was around. I have no idea, but it seems like the Clippers are starting to right the ship. So it's important that they do, because they do not have their draft pick this year. And if the way things were going, you started to wonder, man, the Thunder going to end up with Darren Peterson, or the Thunder going to end up with AJ DeBonta? That seemed actually part of the conversation, because the Clippers had started this year as one of the worst teams in the NBA. Now, not so much. But I say this just only say you see the standings there. Spurs sitting there at number 2 in the West, but a lot still to be had here. Where you got the Spurs at 2, again, Spurs Suns at 7, only 3 games separating them. So again, not convinced Spurs get to the conference finals because of, again, the experience you need to win in the playoffs. But if they do get a matchup with the Oklahoma City Thunder, that is, I know, what the NBA is absolutely begging for. And it would be awesome for the league, and I think it'll be an absolutely fun matchup to watch. Good game last night. Continuing this rivalry that we're starting to see really unfold between the Thunder and the Spurs, and I'm excited to keep seeing it develop. So cool game last night. Let's get to some other stuff that happened over last night, which included LeBron James, who had to distance himself from comments made by Rich Paul. And I want to play you guys these comments in a second, because they were bizarre. I've seen, again, agents make comments about all different things to help their clients. I've not seen an agent decide, hey, I'm going to launch a podcast so I can get off my sports takes and my basketball takes about current things and current teams building strategies. It's really bizarre. And I'll play you some of the sound from earlier that I played yesterday because I think it's important. So yesterday, we got word that Lakers aren't too happy about some of these comments that Rich Paul was making. All right, well, what was Rich Paul saying? One, he said that the Lakers were not a title contender, which maybe is like, duh. But, okay, a little weird. Like, this is basically LeBron James' agent. His friend is, like, putting out there that the team's not a title contender when we know that's what LeBron wants. So it kind of creates an awkward situation potentially, but maybe not as much of the red line to say in terms of, like, how far you're going to push this. Then he went a little further when he started talking about the Lakers and who they should acquire prior to the trade deadline.
Lakers. If I was the Lakers, I would probably be targeting the Memphis Grizzlies as a trade partner
For?
Jaren Jackson.
Yeah. That'd be a great fit.
I would.
For whom?
Well, that's the thing, because you got to figure out the package. But some way, somehow, I would be trying to get Jaren Jackson, maybe get back Gigi Jackson.
So there, you got Rich Paul saying the Lakers should go after Jaren Jackson, which we know LeBron, who we maybe affectionately or not so affectionately sometimes call Le GM, and we know how he operates, and we know that he is always never afraid to put his thumb on the scale to talk about the players he believes of any team he's playing for, whether it's Lakers, whether it's Cavs, whether Heat, who should be playing, who should be coaching. He puts himself into those situations. So when we see LeBron James' agent say, hey, I think it would be a good idea that they trade for Jaren Jackson, it's not that much of a leap to think, oh, so then LeBron thinks that the Lakers should probably trade for Jaren Jackson. But like with any trade, to get something, you got to give up something, which then creates an even more awkward situation where it's like, if Rich Paul was saying that they need to get Jaren Jackson, then which one of LeBron's teammates is he saying has to hit the brakes?
If you're able to trade out expirings and give up the last first-round pick you got, that could be one scenario, right? Or you can say, let me withhold that, but this comes with
Austin Reaves.
This comes with a very unemotional attachment because Austin is beloved, which he should be.
But he's about to get paid.
He's an underdog. And here's the thing. If there's a world where you can do what's best for your team and do what's best for Austin, because Austin deserves to get paid.
And what's best for Austin is to send his ass to Memphis. I still can't get over how he counts that, being like, we can do what's best for the team and what's best for Austin. I don't think the Lakers want Austin Reaves traded in terms of what's best for their team. And I don't think Austin Reaves wants to be in Memphis. So that scenario where Rich Paul is saying we're making a scenario where everyone is happy, I don't think actually makes anyone happy. Now, I do think that Austin Reaves wants to get paid. We all agree with that. But I think he wants to get paid by the Lakers. It is not a secret that guys in the NBA want to play for the Lakers. Guys in the NBA want to play in Los Angeles. That's the most famous, biggest brand you could possibly play in the NBA. It is the best place to play if you're an NBA basketball player. Warm weather during winter months, you're living in Hollywood, you're at the crypto.com arena, the off-the-court marketability, expectations, and the opportunities that come your way because you're a star in the Lakers are endless. And Rich Paul is like, you know what will make everybody happy? If the Lakers trade their potential, very marketable, young, rising star to Memphis. And I'll also make Austin Reaves happy because now he'll be getting paid, even though he'll be getting paid in Memphis. I mean, you read that, and it doesn't make a lot of sense. And this is where Jovan Buha, forgive me if I'm pronouncing his name wrong, but he's been a Laker reporter for a while. He does some really awesome streaming content. I've watched his shows and pulled his content from Maggie and Pro Show in the past. And he says that the particular issue with the Lakers is some of the stuff that Rich Paul's been talking about.
I can confirm that, people have not been happy. I'm not going to go more specific than that, but I would just say people have not been happy with that pod and some of the comments, especially I feel like there was some of the initial stuff, like there was they're not contenders, right? And that was one thing, and even some people inside that building might believe that at the core if you gave them truth serum. It was like one thing to think that privately, one thing to put that out.
So yeah, so the comments about the situation with the not being a contender is one thing, but then now you're talking about trading people. That is where things get weird.
Some of the stuff that has come out since, most notably, I think recently, this whole trade Austin Reaves for Jaren Jackson Jr., who they basically averaged the same amount of rebounds, and that would have been an interesting trade a year ago, but Austin Reaves is just a straight up better player than Jaren Jackson Jr. and has more trade value than Jaren Jackson Jr. So I actually think if Memphis wants to throw in multiple picks and Gigi Jackson, then maybe that's a conversation, but the general framework of just Triple J for Austin Reaves straight up does not make any sense, in my opinion, from the Lakers side.
And the Lakers don't think it makes a lot of sense, which is why there's issues with Rich Paul continuing to make these comments.
But yeah, it's been some interesting comments coming out of that, because that is uncommon for an agent to be commenting on his player's team to this degree and saying basically, I would trade this guy. Especially a guy who's sort of in contract competition for his client. So yeah,
it's bizarre. So I think people now listen. I want to also be clear, because like one of the things I try to do, and whenever I'm commenting on things, is sometimes when you're doing like I don't know if I call it a national show. I don't know what the hell I call this, but I think I'm trying to talk about anything under the sun. It's definitely not a hyper local Los Angeles show, obviously, right? But what I know some local fans hate, I know it as a Knicks fan or as a Jets fan or as a Mets fan, is like the national guy helicoptering in and acting like they know everything that's going on. When the fans who are watching every single night, the fans that are picking up on these Rich Paul podcasts and all the little innuendos that are happening around the team, the national folks maybe aren't picking up because they're not following the Lakers like that. So I always like to make sure I bring that perspective. I don't like to ignore that, because people, the biggest thing was with Pittsburgh, right? Where, so much of the national media could never understand why Mike Tomlin would be on the hot seat, but people in Pittsburgh have been screaming this guy should be on the hot seat for years. And we would hear it on Maggie and Perloff's show, and I always like to ensure that when I'm on the mic, I'm bringing that perspective that, hey, listen, this is how people feel within the community of the team that we're talking about, and the players that we're talking about. And I know Laker fans, a lot of them, not all of them, and I'm not saying it's even a majority, a lot of them are completely, utterly fed up with the LeBron James, Rich Paul antics, with the, with the passive aggressiveness, with all the different, comments about, well, LeBron wants to come back, but he wants to see that he's playing for a championship team, and then some of these what feels like Machiavellian kind of moves to kind of what's the word I'm looking for? Kind of undermine whatever the Lakers are trying to do for their future, because it's very clear, as they should, the Lakers are not prioritizing LeBron James's present for their future. They're not going to say, you know what, forget about like our plans for the future and how we want to build this thing. We got to make sure that LeBron this year has the best shot to maximize his final years of his NBA career to win a championship. That is 100% not part of the Lakers' goals, and it 100% should not be part of the Lakers' goals. If he was Kobe Bryant, if he was somebody who played his entire career for the Lakers, won 5 championships for the Lakers, had given his blood, sweat, and tears to the organization, then yes, an argument can be made that, and an argument was made actually, because there were people who were being like, hey, it actually would make sense if like they didn't re-sign Kobe at the end of his career. Like they didn't re-sign Kobe, if they didn't have him playing on a max deal, like they did kind of explore trading him. Because their salary cap was a mess, they were a mess. They were a complete mess. We remember those last years with Kobe and the Lakers. They were like the worst team in the NBA. But you had to swallow it because it's Kobe Bryant. and he means more to the Lakers. He actually becomes bigger than the Lakers in many ways because of how much of an icon he is and was. So you just take it. You say, all right, these will be some terrible couple of years, and once he's gone, then all right, then we try to pick up the pieces from there. But we can't afford to say, you know what, we're gonna screw over Kobe for the sake of saving some salary cap room, something like that. You couldn't do that. It wasn't feasible, even if it made the most sense. That is not LeBron James' relationship with the Lakers and the Lakers community. He is a basketball icon. He's a global icon. He's not a Lakers icon. He is not an LA icon. So all Lakers fans care about is how to make sure they prepare themselves for the Luka Doncic era, which is fully underway, which for them means they're going to have to get their salary cap situation in order and their future in order so that they can go big with free agent hunting in 2027. And that is the absolute plan. That does not mean they're going to start trading for Jaren Jacksons of the world who have long-term contracts. That does not mean they're going to give away young stars like Austin Reaves, who could be running mates for Luka Doncic. That's not part of the equation. So when they've been seeing these things happening from Rich Paul, from LeBron James, and it has frustrated them. So now I think because even LeBron James realizes that this could potentially make his time in LA, however long that is, it could start to become more uncomfortable if they continue to play these games. So he then gives comments to Dave McMenamin of ESPN. And Dave McMenamin is definitely well known to be one of the reporters LeBron James will talk to. He does not talk to many. Joe Varden of The Athletic is one of them. Dave McMenamin is one of them. Those are some of his main guys that if you want to get the perspective of, LeBron will just say things on the record, so he won't have to, do tea leaves or read between the lines. I think if you want to then also read between the lines of what things are being said, I think I would probably read those guys in terms of what's happening with LeBron James. So he gives Dave McMenamin some quotes on the record about what Rich Paul said, because I think even he knows that this is potentially a problem for him. I don't think that, again, this is the end of his career. I don't know if he's like going to welcome the idea of, I want to make this as difficult as possible. So he then has to make some clarifying comments. I'm just trying to do some laundry here so you can see these quotes here. So here's LeBron James saying, quote, "I think you all know by now, Rich is his own man. And what Rich says is not a direct reflection of me and how I feel. And I hope people know that. I hope that people know that. And if they're not sensible to know that, then I don't know what to tell them." So again, this was comments made on the Game Over podcast with Max Hellman and Rich Paul, from the Rich Paul's comments I played earlier. He also went on to say, let's see where you got here. Here's a quote here. "AR knows how I feel about him. All you got to do is look at us on the bench. Me and AR talk every single day. So AR knows how I feel about him. And I hope AR or his camp don't look at me and think this is words from me are coming from that are coming through Rich," which doesn't, the grammar's a little weird there, but we get the point, right? That this is Rich, saying what he's saying, that Rich is kind of saying his own things. He goes on to say, "Rich, that's what he's doing. That's his whole thing. That's what he's doing. That's what he's talking about. But I have zero conversations about what his topics are going to be or what they're going to talk about. He is his own man. That is his platform." So that's LeBron James to me doing some cleanup work with some of these comments. Here's what I'll say with the Rich Paul situation. Either Rich Paul, either this is like again, Machiavellian work where LeBron knows he can't say these things and put this out there, so he's having Rich Paul do it, but then he's creating this distance to be like, hey, it's not me, guys. It just happens to be my longtime, lifelong best friend and my business partner and my agent who's saying this. But that doesn't reflect me. That has nothing to do with me. He's saying his own thing. I don't care. And he's talking about my business interests. He's not it's not like Rich Paul, by the way, it was weird, and it continues to be weird that he's talking about like Giannis be traded for Jalen Johnson and things like that. But like that, okay, that's not LeBron James' interest. Austin Reaves' future with the Lakers is 100% within the purview of LeBron James' business interests. And this is his business partner and his agent. So again, this is a Machiavellian thing for him to be like, I'm going to have you say this stuff, but it's not going to come back on me, because then I could just say, well, that wasn't me saying it. That was my longtime business partner and best friend, which I don't know how believable that is, but that could be the game he's playing. And the or is kind of odd, because I don't think that Rich Paul is bad at his job, but the or is that Rich Paul is also no longer prioritizing LeBron James. And that Rich Paul is now prioritizing perhaps a shift in whatever he wants his next iteration of Rich Paul 2.0 to be. Because this is not good agent work. Let me be 100% clear. Again, I said this last night, there's always kind of a defense for Rich Paul because he is, like I said, I agree, a successful agent. He started, Clutch Sports with the help of LeBron James, and using that launching pad, he has created a powerhouse of a sports agency. There's no denying that. What they've done in the NBA, what they've done in the NFL, the clients they've had, the $1 billion worth of contracts that they've signed for star athletes, he's done a tremendous job. And considering where he came from, it is absolutely an underdog story that anybody can root for. But this is terrible agent work. To be running around with, if LeBron doesn't believe this, and you're just running around and just going on your own tangent, being like, well, I'm going to just say this stuff anyway, knowing that it's going to make LeBron's life a living hell, because now he's going to have to deal with potentially a blowback from the organization, a blowback from the fans, and Rich Paul is also taking blowback, because what we learned also in this article that I don't know if I know it's in this article, but I don't know if did I scroll past it? I want to see if I could see it one more time. And I don't see it here initially, but I know it was in this article that I did want to highlight. Let me see if I could do let me see. I want to pull it up real quick. I think it is an important part that you guys should see. Oh, here we go. So I'm going to pull it up real quick, just one more thing from this article that I think was really telling. Which you'll see here. One of Reeves' agent, Reggie Berry of AMR Agency, that's the agency that represents Austin Reaves, approached Paul on the sideline near the court at halftime of the Lakers-Hawks game Tuesday. So this was just last night. I mentioned it earlier in the week. Actually, it was literally yesterday. This was the game last night that they played. The two spoke for more than 5 minutes, and the topic of conversation was Paul's public trade scenario regarding Reeves. So again, this is not also just, like Rich Paul just creating problems for LeBron James. He also apparently may be creating problems for Rich Paul. Because if Rich Paul, agencies all hate each other. Agents hate each other. Like, we know it is, you want to talk about the Wild Wild West. You think, college football is corrupt and college football is no rules and stuff. And when you get to sports agencies, there are no rules. It is a dog-eat-dog world. But if you are in a situation where you're creating, like, untenable relationships with other agencies, when you're going to have players that play for multiple agencies, that does create problems potentially, and that does create friction. And LeBron James and Austin Reaves have to still play with each other, and LeBron James is saying, I'm friends with Austin Reaves, he's my guy, like, I don't have any beef with him, I want him to stay. So this also became a thing that became a topic of conversation between Reaves' agent and Paul. The fact that it was a 5-minute conversation makes me feel like it might not have been a lot of, like, let's hash this out. It might have been a, hey man, what the F? I'm gonna give you a piece of my mind that I'm walking away from you kind of conversation. So again, this seems all strange to me. Again, this doesn't seem like the work of a good agent. It doesn't seem like the work of someone who is looking out for their client's best interest, which again brings me to my point about, I wonder if we're seeing a pivot from Rich Paul. I gotta give my brother Kendall Stewart, who I will have on the show at some point soon. We do sports talk together. He's part of the Hero Talk podcast that we do. But he has said for a long time that he always felt Rich Paul's next step was going to be him wanting to run an NBA team. Similar to what we see with, obviously, Rob Pelinka, who is the president of the Lakers, who was a former agent. We see Leon Rose, who is the Knicks president and was also the head of basketball at CAA. We're now seeing, Bob Myers was an agent, became, one of the most successful general managers in NBA history, creating the Warriors dynasty. We've seen now this pivot of going from agent to running a sports team, and it's actually gone pretty well. I just mentioned two guys that won a title. Leon Rose led the Knicks from a complete, dumpster fire to being a championship contender. Like, I think that more agents are going to get opportunities if they put their name in their hat in the ring. I am starting to wonder, because we're seeing so many of these takes from Rich Paul about current NBA situations and people should be traded and what teams should do and all this stuff. I wonder, this is Rich Paul setting up what he hopes to be kind of like a soft launch for what he hopes to be the next career, which is running an NBA team. Now, if we want to keep this Machiavellian game going, we know a team in Vegas is most likely coming, and we know LeBron James wants to be the owner of that team, which would obviously he'd have to do it through like some kind of ownership group, but he wants to run an NBA team. If LeBron James gets ownership control of an NBA team, I will be stunned if it's not Rich Paul who is his general manager or president of basketball operations, because that's how much he loves Rich Paul and stuff. Now, to me, it'd be then odd that like LeBron's also saying, hey, what that guy is saying, it has nothing to do with me. I don't agree with anything he's saying. I'm like, well, now that guy's going to be your general manager. Whatever. But I think if you play the game along of where this is going, I would wonder if what we're seeing from Rich Paul, because I think everybody's asking the same question, the same thing that I'll play one more time from Jovan about like why is Rich Paul doing this? It's odd.
But yeah, it's been some interesting comments coming out of that, because that is uncommon for an agent to be commenting on his player's team to this degree and saying basically, I would trade this guy, especially a guy who's sort of in contract competition for his client. So yeah.
Yeah, it's weird, but it's not as weird if, again, Rich Paul is looking out for himself and he's thinking like, I want to be run a sports team. But what would be the detriment, or what would be, I guess, the impediment for me doing that? One would be if LeBron James is not running, which may happen. LeBron may not get the Vegas team. He may not get to own an NBA team. That's a reality. So if he doesn't have LeBron in his corner, then, okay, well, what else can he do? Well, the other thing with all agents, and this is always going to be like the thing with agents, even though, again, it's worked out very well for a lot of teams, is I think there's still going to be the thing of, all right, but do you really know basketball? Like, okay, you know how to negotiate contracts. You know how to advocate for your client to get them out of a city, or to advocate for a client based on the numbers they do as to why they should get this kind of money. But do you actually know basketball? Are you able to scout talent? Are you able to evaluate NBA teams? Now, there are many things about being a sports agent that suggest the answer could still be yes, because you guys scout talent to find the kind of guys you want to represent. So there's that. Like, you got, like, there's aspects to even being a sports agent that still also kind of go into like having to know a sport. But if you don't come up as a player, if you don't come up as a coach, you don't come up as a scout or a former GM or front office type, I think the bias that will happen for people that are those kind of candidates will always be like, we don't know if they actually know anything about basketball. So if Rich Paul feels like people don't actually think that he knows how to build a champion, which is I think is a fair criticism, but then you could argue maybe it's not so fair, because again, we've had guys that done it. This maybe could be his way to say, hey, look, I'm doing a podcast and I'm talking about things that teams could do to improve their rosters, and I'm putting free game out there. Do I think it's the smartest way to go about doing that, or that it's even necessary? I don't think so. But I also don't know what conversation Rich Paul is having with NBA insiders about why he cannot be NBA, a president or a general manager of a team. Very interesting stuff coming. I think there's a lot more to be talked about when it comes to this LeBron Lakers thing. Like I said, I think this is heading towards I think two scenarios. One of two scenarios, and they're very simple. Either LeBron's going to realize he is kind of outfoxed in terms of just like he has no moves. If he really wants to stay in LA, he's going to have to just kind of like shut up and take whatever the Lakers give him in terms of contract offers, in terms of however they want to move. And they're not going to move heaven and earth to make him happy in terms of improving the roster, things like that. And if he wants to finish his career with the Lakers, then he's going to have to just deal with that. That's just what he's going to have to deal with. So he's going to either do that, which I think is the most likely scenario, or things are going to get very ugly and very uncomfortable for him. And it's going to become a kind of a circus atmosphere with the Lakers. And that scenario, I don't know how that ends. I don't know if it ends with him still ending his career with the Lakers. He may still have to end his career with the Lakers, but just maybe a lot more contentious. Or maybe that does require him to then be traded somewhere else, and he agrees to go somewhere else, and he's playing one final year with the Cavs or someone like that. But there's only two scenarios with this. Either he just shut up and takes it in terms of like the situation that is, which is, this is Luka Doncic's team. Lakers are prioritizing him. They do not care about making sure LeBron has a championship contender around him for the final year or 2 years of his career. And he just takes it, he retires, and we move on. And maybe he sends his parting shot after his career is over. Or he becomes more aggressive, Rich Paul becomes more aggressive in their commentary on the team in hopes that they make changes happen, or at least very least they make the Lakers situation uncomfortable. I don't think he wants uncomfortable at this point in his life. I saw the comments about him playing back-to-backs, and he was like, man, I'm 41 years old. I've played for 23 years. You all know by now, back-to-backs are TBD for the rest of my career. Like, I don't know how I'm going to feel when I wake up after playing 35 minutes of basketball the night before, which is totally fair. Totally something I understand. But even him saying that, like, he sounded almost defeated. He sounded almost like, what are we doing here? I'm just kind of playing out the string for the rest of my career. I'm just putting these numbers up. And he made a comment also that I can't probably play for you, but I did want to mention because I thought they were kind of interesting comments. They were so LeBron James, because LeBron's funny because he shows his age so much now. Because this is something where if he said this 13 years ago or 7 years ago, or the reference he made, it would have been funny, it would have been cool. But like now, him making this kind of commentary is kind of like, all right, man, like this is where you're going with this. So I have it here. I'm gonna do something. I do have a lot of capabilities here. I'm gonna see if I can actually play this for you live. This was LeBron James after the game too, talking about his haters. I'm talking about, I guess, lack of appreciation for him. I want you guys to hear this. Hopefully this works out, and hear the reference that he makes.
I would never disrespect the basketball gods. I understand that it's a real thing, and I would never disrespect the basketball gods when it comes to playing this game. So I'll put the time and the effort and the commitment in it, mentally, physically, spiritually. Every time I hit the floor or I'm at practice or whatever the case may be, trying to set the example for my teammates and the younger generation that's watching me or watching me throughout my career. I mean, shit, my son is right over there, so I can't afford to cheat the game ever, and I would never do that, and I got to set an example for him over there too. So, as Jay-Z would say, if you can't respect that, your whole perspective is whack. Maybe you'll love me when I fade to black.
Oh gosh. Again, I think it's funny because, again, had LeBron said that many years ago, I think it would have been, a cool NBA athlete references a Jay-Z line and like his clap back to haters. But I mean, we're talking about Black Album, which we're talking about, what, 2004, right? Like, we're talking about a reference that is literally, and like, I love Jay-Z's music. I love Hov. Jay-Z's music is obviously kind of timeless, but we're talking about a reference literally from 22 years ago. It's like, all right, guy. Like, again, now if you reference something from, I don't know, even Drake, because but he's not gonna reference Drake because we know there's a beef there. But like a Kendrick or one of these other younger guys, I don't know, it would have maybe landed a little better. But I think the point of that line he says is kind of, I think I don't know the full context of this. I tried to click on David Menneman's actual tweet. It's just a quote, doesn't have any other context. But I know there's been conversations about, again, him sitting out, him not playing back-to-backs, effort or whatever. I guess that's him responding to the fact that, he's not cheating the game. He's continuing to play the game the right way. But then he does the Jay-Z line, which is, I would never disrespect, Jay-Z would say, if you can't respect that, your whole perspective is whack. Maybe you'll love me when I fade to black. And this was obviously, the reference is a song from Jay-Z's Black Album when Jay-Z was doing his quote-unquote retirement, which we now know obviously was not a retirement, but was quote-unquote supposed to be his last album. And the whole theme was this kind of fade to black that he was talking about. And this line, I guess, was, because Jay-Z, whenever you're the superstar, megastar, best in the game, you're going to have haters. And LeBron James, obviously, is friends with Jay-Z and a lot of times talks about how much Jay-Z's career and life is inspiration for him. LeBron using that, I think, does kind of speak to, like, maybe a little bit of his psyche a little bit, that maybe what he has given to the game and maybe what he has given to the Laker fans is not being fully appreciated. And that has been the whole friction with all of this when it comes to what's happening with the Lakers in their future in terms of their decision to trade for Luka Doncic without any conversation with LeBron James, which seems more and more clear. LeBron does not seem all that happy with this team, but I think, again, it just seems like it's the most convenient place for him to be, so that's why he's dealing with it. But now, yeah, I mean, he's saying that because I think he hears the noise. Like I said, if you're in LA or you're in the Laker community, it's not like a secret or like some kind of like small little thing that's just on the internet, small thing that like Laker fans are tired of this guy, and that the Lakers fans, some of them cannot wait for him to retire and just get out of here. And then you got LeBron here making the whole Jay-Z line. Maybe you'll love me when I fade to black. Again, I think it's him kind of referencing that lack of appreciation he feels like he has been getting from Laker fans in the basketball community. So a lot of LeBron stuff there, but this is, I think, going to be, again, one of the kind of under the radar stories to follow all year because, and apologies, I know there's a curse there again. I was like, there are no rules here. I'm not going to be sitting there dropping crazy F-bombs and stuff. At least that's not the plan for this show. There will be some sound bites where if there's some cursing, I don't know if I'm going to go through all the work to bleep out everything. So if you hear a curse and the kids are around, apologies for that. But yeah, I think this is going to continue to be a storyline to follow in terms of LeBron and how he ends his career with the Los Angeles Lakers. So speaking of stars who I think are a little disillusioned with where they are, let's get to Giannis Antetokounmpo. let's keep the mess going in terms of NBA mess happening right now. I know I don't really like title episodes for. I do title episodes, but there isn't like a official title. Usually it's just day 3 of the show, and then I just put in whatever we talked about as a headline. But like this, if I titled an episode, it would be this day in the NBA mess or something like that, because it was a lot of messiness, and we'll get to Anthony Davis soon too. But Giannis Antetokounmpo also kind of had an interesting situation happen with him last night. So he's playing against the Timberwolves. They got completely blown out at home, and it's been a very odd situation with Giannis and the Bucks because Giannis, we know they've had conversations about him potentially leaving. There was this summer window where he said the Knicks were the only team he'd want to play for. So then the Bucks tried to negotiate a trade with the Knicks that never went through. And that meant that, okay, when that didn't happen, then he came back to the team and quote-unquote recommitted and locked in, but still also wanted to see that they could compete for a championship. The Bucks stink. They are not competing for a championship. So then it's led to kind of like this weird friction where he kind of says these kind of passive-aggressive things, but then also says, I think he said recently that he would never demand a trade out of Milwaukee, which is weird because, again, you did okay them trying to find a home for you in New York. So you have talked to them about getting traded. But are you doing this weird word salad saying, well, I didn't demand a trade. I just allowed myself to be available to a team I want to go to. I don't know. It seems like you're asking for a trade to me, bro. But anyway, so the Bucks were getting blown out by 30 last night. They lose a kind of a poor showing. I think you're seeing probably the end of Doc Rivers with the Milwaukee Bucks coming up very soon. They lost this game 139 to 106. But what happened was in the second half, coming out of halftime, as they're getting blown up by 30, and the Bucks fans, which I don't think of them as like a negative fan base. I don't think of them as like we're gonna boo you out of the town kind of fan base. That's never to me been the Bucks fan experience. They're almost like a college crowd. They actually literally sometimes they used to do like college chants in Upper Deck. They were getting after the Bucks a little bit. They were booing the team for good reason. They were playing awful, and it's been a bad season for the Bucks. And Giannis wasn't too happy about it. And when he went to the basket and scored in the third quarter, he then did what Knicks fans and Mets fans now are very synonymous. Part of me is like, man, welcome to New York. You fit right into some of the stuff that the Knicks and New York City has had to deal with. But falling right in line, ironically, after getting fouled on a layup by Julius Randle, he then does the thumbs down sign, and you can see with his mouth, he starts booing while he's on the ground. He gets up, pulls a thumb down, starts booing as they're getting blown out. And he then confirmed after the game that this was a message to Bucks fans, that he was indeed booing the Bucks fans because they were booing him. And this was the article from ESPN where he said he confirmed that he was getting booed. He said, whenever I get booed, I booed back. And then, obviously, that led to the question of, well, okay, yes, we make sense when you get booed by other teams. I guess we've seen you do that. But you're at home. That means you're booing your home fans. And he said, quote, it doesn't matter. I play basketball for my teammates. I play basketball for myself and my family. Notice he didn't say anything about the fans. When people don't believe in me, I don't tend to be with them. I tend to do what I'm here to do, what I'm good at. It won't change home or away. But yeah, I've never been a part of something like that before. I don't think it's fair. I don't. But everybody has their opinion to do what they do. I'm not going to tell them what to do and how they should act when we don't play hard or when we lose games or when we're not where we're supposed to be. I don't think anyone has a right to tell me how I should act on a basketball court after I've been here 13 years and I'm basically the all-time leader in everything. So this thing is getting ugly. This thing is getting, to me, it's getting to a point of no return, I think, soon, where it's like, this doesn't feel tenable. The Milwaukee Bucks are 17-23. This is a terrible season. It's the East, so could they make the playoffs? I guess in theory, yes. Right now, currently, they are, let me pull the standings real quick. They are literally right outside the play-in. At this point, it probably behooves them to not make the playoffs, and they actually get a lottery pick. And maybe they actually, as crazy as it sounds, maybe get Giannis some help, considering, again, how good this draft is going to be. But they're not a very good team, so this is going to continue to get ugly. Giannis doesn't seem to be in any interest to make it less uncomfortable, to make it less awkward. He seems only to want to make it more uncomfortable, make it more difficult. So I don't think we're going to see much change from him in terms of how he's going to act, and it's going to only get worse. To which I keep asking, why does he keep doing this have your cake and eat it too routine? Why won't he just step up and say, you know what, it's been a great time here. I absolutely love what's going on with obviously, what I've done here, my time here. Milwaukee's become part of my family, part of my community, but I think it's time for me to go. And I think, would you face a backlash from people in Milwaukee? You're going to face backlash anytime you demand a trade. Anytime. It doesn't matter, even the circumstances. It's always going to happen. Sometimes you don't even demand a trade, you still face backlash. Like, it just, even the optics of you leaving a small market or even a big market team to want to go somewhere else after you've given so much to one community, and the community is also given back to you as well, to be fair, then it's never going to be super clean. But now you got this. So if you don't do that, if you don't do what I think is actually the mature thing to do, which is the right thing to do, which is to just be honest about a situation, knowing that you don't want to be here. It's very clear. You're now saying, literally, you just said, I don't think that the fans should be acting that way, given I'm the all-time leader in everything I've done here. I've been there for 13 years. I own all your records. Why the hell are you booing me? That doesn't sound like somebody that wants to continue playing there. That doesn't sound like somebody who's pleased with where things are happening and what's going on with the Milwaukee Bucks. So why are you subjecting yourself to this anymore? Why are we still doing this song and dance? You're doing this because you want to seem like a good guy? You look worse. You actually look like a bad guy when you do this. You look like a bad guy when you make these things of like, I didn't actually demand the trade. I just okayed my team to talk to the New York Knicks. And I'm locked in for now. I'm committed as long as they help me win a championship. I don't care if the fans boo me, but then don't get upset or don't something if I didn't disrespect the fans. Like, now you look like a bad guy. You actually don't look like what I think you're trying to do, which is you're trying to engineer your eventual exit out of here in a way that allows you to still be welcomed by the community and the fans to still love you. And I would argue that's going to happen. Like, I don't think you have to go through this song and dance to make this exit from Milwaukee smoother. The only way, I don't know if maybe he's like spooked by like, I think what we see from like a guy like Kevin Durant, where he's almost kind of welcome nowhere. Like, he's been on all these teams, and maybe outside the Nets, I would say, which is maybe arguably the most disastrous end to his like to all the exits he's been in. Like, besides the Nets, he doesn't have a home anywhere. There's no fan base of any of these teams that like buy that are still wearing his jersey, that want to see his number retired, that want to support him. Like, of course, there are some fans within it, but I'm talking about just a large thing. He's never going to be as beloved as Steph Curry in Golden State. He's never going to be as beloved in OKC as Russell Westbrook or Shai Gilgeous-Alexander. He's never going to be beloved in Brooklyn in the Nets community the way Jason Kidd was once loved by the Nets community, even though he tried to stage a coup to take over the Nets at some point when he was the head coach. And he's never going to be beloved, obviously, in the Suns with Devin Booker. Like, he's going to be this great NBA legend that I don't think is ever going to really feel the love that he should feel. Now, he has a lot of individual fans, which has become kind of a new thing. Not a new thing, but like, it's the new age of the NBA where there are people who just kind of jump from team to team with whoever their favorite player is. So he has those folks. There's some folks who will always say, hey, Kevin Durant's my GOAT. Kevin Durant's my all-time favorite player. He'll have those folks. He's not going to have a fan base and a team that he can go to and feel the love from. And at this point, unless he wins the championship with the Rockets, which then he could become a Rocket. And I think that's what he's hoping for. That's what I think he's been searching for the end of his career. But Giannis, I don't think he has to worry about that. I think even Dwight Howard has been able to go back to Orlando and get his number retired. I think Shaq recently went back to Orlando and got his number retired. It could go out ugly and they'll still welcome you back. Like the Kevin Durants and the James Hardens of the world, who I think actually will eventually still be beloved back in Houston once his career is over. Now, he's not going to be beloved in Philly or Brooklyn, but in Houston, yeah. But maybe he's spooked by seeing Harden and like Durant and seeing how those exits ended and how those fan bases looked at those guys as pariahs and then they hate them. Like, I don't think he has to worry about that, but I think that's what he's worried about, which is why he's doing this thing. But I think his emotions and how he feels about the situation and that they're a terrible team and he's wasting away the last few years of his prime on a team that has no chance to win a title when he's trying to win more championships and, really add notches to the legacy. It's not allowing him to, I think, conduct himself in a way that he would want himself to. So, again, I challenge Antetokounmpo to be like, at what point do you say, all right, man, it's been fun here. I did my best. It didn't work out in terms of us winning a championship. Let me see what I can do elsewhere. To keep doing this thing, we're only going to have more moments of him, I think, losing his cool because they're going to keep getting blown out. They're going to keep losing a lot of games, and he's going to keep getting ass. I know he also, and again, you talk about looking like a bad guy. He's telling reporters, don't ask me again about being traded. Like, he's turning heel. And I think his whole point of doing all this was to not turn heel. So it seems like everything that he's been going through recently, extremely counterproductive to what the cause has been, which is him to try to keep his relationship, I believe. Excuse me, as I turn the light off. I'm trying to adjust this lighting. It's always going to be weird as I do this show, continuing to figure out the lighting situation as the sun comes up here in the East Coast. I think it's still better if I have the light on, so I'll keep it on. But yeah, no, this is not a surprise to me that this is going this way. This was never going to be smooth, and I think him thinking he could have his cake and eat it too, it never made any sense. And now he's seeing the ramifications of that. Again, speaking of another mess in the NBA, let's go to Anthony Davis. Again, you're up. I mean, man, this was a messy day, messy night for NBA basketball. Sorry, that lower third is way too small. Let me move it up here. But Anthony Davis, so a lot of weird things happening with Anthony Davis and his future as well, because he's been said to be, or he was said to be, kind of like the apple of the trade deadline ball in terms of the big name guy. I mean, Giannis is out there, but we know engineering a trade for Giannis is going to be very difficult. What we've been seeing and hearing is that Anthony Davis is truly going to be the big star that will be available at the trade deadline, because the Mavs stink. They will be better off getting a high draft pick. The plan that they had under Nico Harrison has been thrown out because Nico Harrison is on the unemployment line. He's not there anymore. So his vision of Kyrie and Anthony Davis combined with now Cooper Flag means that we could find a way to win a championship and we could be the defensive juggernaut I think we need to be in order to win. That's not happening. Kyrie's obviously still hurt, trying to come back, but he doesn't seem to be a part of their future plans. Klay Thompson, that signing is not giving them the boost that they thought it would give them. And again, Anthony Davis is there, but he's been, as we know about Anthony Davis, oft injured. So they're looking at the standings. They're looking at where they are. The Mavericks, outside the playoff picture right now, they are 12th in the Western Conference, 2.5 games out of the play-in. This is not a team at all that's close to winning a championship. So then the conversation becomes, all right, what do we do about potentially trying to make a trade happen? Then he gets hurt, which again is the Anthony Davis story, but it's unfortunate, right? He hurts his hand, and it appears to be a pretty significant injury. And the initial reporting from Sean Shirani, it was that he's injured significantly. They're going to evaluate him. Then Shams comes out and says, well, he's hurt really badly, and he's going to get surgery, which means he's going to be out for the season for the Dallas Mavericks. And we're like, okay, that's interesting, and that's kind of crazy. But then things, and which we thought, okay, out for the season means also like he's not going to be able to get traded, which is, a situation where like, oh, that's, I'm not saying we were happy to see people get traded, but that was an interesting development, an interesting storyline that we were looking forward to seeing how it's going to play out, and now we won't have it play out. Davis then comes out, let me back up. Then Shams comes out and says, fascinating development, which is like a weird way to start a tweet, which came 1 minute after their initial tweet, which is that Anthony Davis is done for the year. So it's like, how does development come in 30 seconds? Like, what do you mean fascinating development? So he puts out, I'm trying to find the tweet for you guys. He deleted the tweet because, again, this became a whole fiasco yesterday. But then he puts out this. Fascinating development. The Mavericks have renewed trade talks with multiple interested teams, sources said. This is literally 1 minute after he put out a tweet saying, Anthony Davis is done for the year. I'm like, did they call him done for the year? They call, hey, yeah, Shams, Anthony Davis is done for the year. Hang up. Shams, okay, let me tweet. And then 30 seconds later, hey, Shams, change of plans. We're actually also still trying to trade him, and then maybe he could play in the playoffs. And then Shams is literally saying, oh, I just learned the same information 1 minute later. It was weird. But anyway, he put up this tweet. The Mavs have renewed Davis trade talks with multiple interested team, sources said. If moved to a playoff contender, the return timeline could allow Davis to return during the postseason while establishing himself for the long term elsewhere. So then the thought was like, well, he could still be traded because while he would not come back to a Dallas Maverick team that is out of it by that point in time. They're kind of already out of it now, coming back from a hand injury. He would maybe come back for a playoff team, and after the surgery happens and he's all good to go, he could come back and play for them and be ready for the postseason, which still feels kind of weird, right? Like you're gonna trade for a guy who you don't know is gonna be all ready to go, but you're hoping that by the playoffs he can play. How good is that team gonna be having to give up all these assets to get Anthony Davis? Are they gonna even be in the playoffs? Are they gonna be in a position where they can make a run in the playoffs? Considering, I would assume this is not a number 1, number 2 seed. Like if you're trade for Anthony Davis, I guess in theory, could the Celtics trade for him? I'm trying to think of what teams could trade for him where they could still be in a position where they could be high enough in the standings where you can say, okay, you know what? We will wait for Anthony Davis to get healthy and then get him ready for the playoffs. It seems like you're probably talking about a team. I know the Hawks have been a team that has been talked about a ton about trying to get Anthony Davis. You're probably talking about a team that's kind of like a middling team, a team that's kind of in the middle, that is saying, okay, this could be the one step above to get us into championship contention. Is that team going to be able to hold down the fort long enough for Anthony Davis to get healthy after having lost 2 or 3 guys in their team that probably were helping them to get to the point where they're at? It seems unlikely. But this is a story that Shams said, and he said it with fascinating development. Right? Okay, that is interesting, but it's kind of a weird way to put it and a weird way to describe it after you just said he was out for the season and say it's a development because he put out the last tweet 1 minute later. Well, it turns out Anthony Davis was not very happy with any of this. He was not very happy with any of the conversation, anything about how this was being framed. Anthony Davis, who is not a Twitter guy, at least as far as I'm concerned, I don't remember Anthony Davis putting out a lot of things on social media, trying to start social media wars or anything like that. I've never seen him to be that kind of guy. But Anthony Davis took to X and was like, cut out the noise. He went to X and he actually posted a tweet while this was going down and said, y'all better stop listening to these lies on these apps. And we're like, okay, lies? What are you talking about? And then also, under the tweet, this was a response to the post from Shams Charania that he was going to be undergoing surgery to his hand and that he would be forced to miss several months. He then also, under that tweet, posted lies. Like, he responded to Shams and then also posted his own tweet. So, again, now everyone's very confused. Like, I don't know now what the hell is going on. Again, Shams had also mentioned he could be traded and stuff. And again, I assume that also maybe was a lie. It's hard to really tell, I guess, in theory, what exactly he was referring to. But Anthony Davis responds to all this commentary from Shams Charania, which then coincides with Shams backtracking on the original, I think it's fair to say, backtracking on the original post. And actually, he deleted that original post now. And he said Anthony Davis now will not require surgery on his injured left hand after meeting with a physician, and that he is expected to heal from the injury in 6 weeks. So he went from, let's back it up, ligament injury to his hand that was expected to miss months. We learned that a couple of days ago. Then he went to, all right, it's confirmed ligament damage. He's going to get surgery. He's out for the year. Okay? That's crazy, but okay. Then it went to fascinating development. Yes, he will get this surgery, and yes, he's out for the year, but only if he's with the Mavericks. The Mavericks are still trying to trade him, and he could go to another team if he, gets traded to a team that's a contender, and he can come back ready for the playoffs. Like, okay, that's crazy. Anthony Davis then comes out and says, lies, all lies. I'm not getting surgery and all this stuff. So then now we have this new story, which is he's not getting surgery. He's expected to be back within the next 6 weeks. Now Shams is standing by the report. It is in his report on ESPN.com that the Mavs have had renewed trade talks around Davis with multiple interested teams, and those conversations are continuing as the deadline approaches. So I think that. So I know I put there rebukes on a trade proposal. He had rebuked the tweets that were all underneath this. So he was saying lies, but I guess maybe the trade aspect he's not refuting. He is refuting for sure the fact that he's not getting surgery. He's not responding to that. Or excuse me, he is responding to that for sure. So Davis now, who is 32 years old, we now know has ligament damage in his hand that is probably going to require surgery, you would think, at some point, is now potentially going to get traded to a team that's going to give up assets to get him for a playoff push. It only takes one sucker in the NBA to make a bad trade, but it feels like that would be ill-advised if I was a team making a move here. I think with Anthony Davis, it feels like if I was an NBA team, I would say I want to see him healthy in the offseason, and then we can talk about a trade. I don't know if I'm making a trade deadline move where if he comes back in 6 weeks, you're talking about probably March. So he would be traded, while he's still injured, while he's still out. But he would be then ready to go for the last 2 months of the season and for a playoff push. But now he's got ligament damage in his hand, so we don't know how healthy he could actually be playing on that hand. It feels a little dangerous to me. It is his left hand, so it's not his shooting hand. But this, once again, kind of a bizarre situation. And again, just continues to speak to what has been, I think, continues to be confirmed to be arguably the worst trade in NBA history with the Luka Doncic trade. They trade Luka Doncic for all the reasons regarding his fitness and all those other things about whether or not he could be a winning player, which, whether those are true or not, we'll have to find out. But the guy was a superstar all-world NBA player and the face of your franchise. So even if you have those questions about his fitness and his commitment to fitness and his commitment to playing winning basketball, I would think that if you're going to trade it, you probably want to put a little more thought into it besides just saying, let's just get, a 31-year-old who's now a 32-year-old Anthony Davis who's injury prone and not getting draft capital. Like, it just feels like whatever the plan was, it was so half-baked, and it now has been confirmed to be such a terrible decision now, coming up on close to a year later. Anthony Davis now engaged in trade talks, and there's no way. I mean, I was gonna say there's no way they get the capital back that they got for Luka Doncic, but I mean they didn't get a lot back for Luka Doncic, so could they, in theory, get kind of a comparable package to what they got? I guess, but the fact that they traded Luka Doncic for a guy who is not going to have any impact on their organization in any meaningful way, it once again underscores just how disastrous a trade that was. An absolute disaster class by Nico Harrison, who is going to become infamous. I don't think he'll ever be a general manager in the NBA ever again after what happened. I think he's almost like a four-syllable word at this, or a four-letter word for a lot of Maverick fans, and for a lot of people who follow the NBA. I think that it's going to be a long time before we see him involved in any kind of basketball operations. But Anthony Davis, injured, not getting surgery, even though it sounds like he probably should, or maybe he's going to have to get it at some point. And he apparently still could be traded, even though he has this hand injury that does confirm to have ligament damage. So we'll see how that ends up shaking up. If I was an NBA team, I would be scared about trading for Anthony Davis with ligament damage in his hand and him just being Anthony Davis, which is a super talented player, a future Hall of Famer, no doubt, but a guy who is not reliable with his health. And he's only seems to be getting older, and it seems like these injuries are also now starting to mount up. He got injured basically his first game with the Dallas Mavericks last year, and he couldn't get out of the starting blocks really this year without multiple injuries. He came in out of shape, which is ironic considering the conversations about Luka Doncic and his physical fitness and his physical conditioning. Now he's got a hand injury. If you're another NBA team, unless you're right there and he's a finishing piece, I would be very wary of trading reasonable, strong assets for Anthony Davis at the stage of his career. This is EJ Stewart, man. This is 40 days, 40 nights. Again, we're going to be doing these streams live every day, twice a day. Catch me every day, 8 a.m., 6 p.m., streaming multiple platforms. You can find me on YouTube, where most of you guys may be seeing me. I think most of you guys may be on X today, but on YouTube is where the official channel is. That is New Generation Media. I put all the stuff below on the ticker, but follow me and subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media, NU Generation Media on YouTube. Make sure you subscribe. Make sure you give me a like in this video. Make sure you give a comment as well. Any engagement is good engagement. You guys all know how the media game works. So it's important that for digital media, obviously, that you guys engage. If you're enjoying the content, make sure you give a like, give a thumbs up, comment in the comment section. We've had plenty of comments as well. I want to get to some of these that we got here. This is a funny one. So shout out to my guy, Rob DeRay, who, again, has become one of the first characters, I think, on the show, because I talked about him at length a couple days ago, because he texted me. Ironically, I realized he was not texting me live. I just happened to be talking about, coaching carousel when he texted me, which is kind of maybe to his point. But I made the joke about how, he said that I made a comment that, hey, I'm not about people getting fired. I just got fired from my job. But then he listed, I guess, all the people he claims that I tried to get fired, though I would argue he only got about 3 of them right. So he said, I'm a half hour late. How many people did you demand to get fired today so far? I don't think I've demanded anybody be fired today, to be clear. I don't think that has happened today. So everybody's jobs are safe for today, for now. But shout out to Rob DeRay. I want to give a shout out to Rick on X. I don't know who Rick is, but Rick retweeted the stream. Again, we're streaming live on X, so you can catch me live on X as well. So shout out to X. I had to give Elon Musk $11 to allow me to do that. Highly annoying. I'm not an Elon Musk guy at all, but I want to make sure that as many people as possible who follow me, who support me, and support the Maggie and Perloff show, support the WFAN, support the New Generation. I want to see as many people can get this content as possible, so Elon gets these $11 a month, and I'm able to stream to you guys live. So shout out to Rick for retweeting the stream. John Lean, who's been awesome in the comments, he's been following the stream every day. And by the way, I want to say this as well, again, if you're part of the community of the Weedos and Coffee Drinkers of Maggie and Perloff, I know you guys especially. You guys talk. You guys are, I think you guys have become a little close. Like when I was in the stream and while I was in the chat, kind of seeing you guys engage with each other, it was beautiful. It's a beautiful thing. It's just awesome to see how much that community continued to grow during our time on Infinity Sports Network. Let the other coffees and drinkers, the Weedos and Coffee Drinkers know, man, that this is happening. That one of their own, their boy EJ is doing a live stream. I would love to see some of the fun faces from the or avatars, I guess, from the stream also on our stream, man. I'd love to hear from Pine Needle and hear from Big Friendly and hear from even Chris from Birmingham. Even though that guy gets on my nerves because he's always talking about his SEC bias in here the Miami Hurricanes in the national championship game. I'd love to hear from them as well. Again, I'm trying to think of all the people. Guido Pat, I know is one of them. There's a bunch of guys. Apologies if I'm missing any. John Lean's always been one of them as well. But I want you guys, I'd love to hear you guys as well. Make sure you guys get in the comments. Make sure you guys catch the stream. Subscribe to New Generation Media. But he tweeted, John Lean, who's in the YouTube chat, posted that he doesn't listen to Jay-Z. No, that's not true. LeBron is a Jay-Z stan. That is the one thing about LeBron. I know LeBron also becomes, as Jim Rome, I think it's called him LaFib also, because he says all these things like, I love The Godfather, even though he doesn't listen to The Godfather. He never watched The Godfather because he can't name a line from the movie. He talks about, I read the autobiography of Malcolm X. It's my favorite book. And he's like, what? Then it looks like he's on page number 3 when he's seen holding the book in his hand. Like, I knew Kobe Bryant was going to score 81 points while he was scoring, when the game was going on against the Raptors. So he tends to tell what feel to be long tales. Let's just call it that, right? I don't think the love for Jay-Z is one of them. I think he actually legitimately does love Jay-Z. Again, Jay-Z is someone that has supported LeBron since he was in high school. I think Jay-Z was going to LeBron's games when he was in high school. I know when Jay-Z he had a team at Rucker Park at the EBC, the Entertainers Basketball Classic. There's supposed to be this epic game happening between Rockefeller's team at EBC and Terror Squad, owned by Fat Joe and his team. And Terror Squad this is a little story time here. Terror Squad at Rucker Park were a dynasty in terms of like the squad they had. They always brought in NBA players to play for their team for any given game. So they had Stephon Marbury play for them, Jermaine O'Neal play for them. They had a bunch of guys suit up for them at some point. That might have been the team Kobe also played for. I'm not 100% sure, but Kobe famously obviously played at Rucker. He might have played for Terror Squad. I'm not 100% sure. But either way, like, Terror Squad always had NBA guys on their squad. And, Jay-Z had a squad at Rucker at EBC. And he was trying to match Terror Squad. So the word was T-Mac was there and LeBron was there. And we know they were there because the game got rained out as a short story. Oh, no, sorry, this is a blackout. There was a game when LeBron showed up and he might have played, but it was a rain out, so they moved it to Gaucho Gym, so he didn't play. But Lamar Odom still played. But again, a lot of stars playing during the Rucker Park days. But there was a blackout. That was the famous blackout of 2003. And I want to see, I hope I can find it real quickly, but I want to show you guys the roster that was supposed to play in this EBC game that did not happen because of the New York City blackout, where the entire city and large parts of the Northeast did not have power at all. And I did find the graphic. Let me see if I can pull it up and make it big for you guys so you guys can see. But yeah, this was the EBC championship game. It was going to be a monster game, Terror Squad versus the team that was going to be owned by Jay-Z. And it was supposed to be this crazy roster. I saw the image. Okay, here it is. And multiple people have told the story. Guys who were on the team, guys who were, who obviously ran the EBC Rucker Park. So this is not like cap. This is like people who were there saying this is what's going to happen. Fat Joe has talked about it. I think the only person who has been on record maybe is Jay-Z. But this is what has been said about this game that was supposed to happen. This street ball championship game that was going to happen at Rucker Park. And I want to show you guys who was supposed to be playing in this game and what would have been maybe the greatest street ball basketball game in the history of the sport. On Team S Carter, you would have had Sebastian Telfair, well, at that time I believe was in high school, but high school phenom Sebastian Telfair, Knicks guard Jamal Crawford, NBA rookie LeBron James, Lamar Odom, and then the big one was Shaq was apparently in New York City and was going to play in this game. And Fat Joe has told the story about learning that Shaq was going to play for Jay-Z's team because when he put his squad together, Stephon Marbury was on it, who had played on his team all that summer. Allen Iverson was in the building. Carmelo Anthony I say building, and that's going to be in the park. Carmelo Anthony was going to play in this game. Syracuse national champion Carmelo Anthony, who just got drafted by the Denver Nuggets. Jermaine O'Neal, NBA All-Star. And then when he heard that Shaq was going to play for Team S. Carter, he recruited Yao Ming to play at Rucker Park. You want to talk about what would have been maybe one of the most iconic moments in basketball history if you would have seen a street ball game that included LeBron James, Shaquille O'Neal, Allen Iverson, Carmelo Anthony, and Yao Ming. This is what the street legend has been, and again, it has been confirmed by multiple people who have been involved that this is what was going to happen. We all know what happened with urban street legends. It's like, oh, they always exaggerate things. Like, I'm just telling you what they have said about what this game was supposed to be. It never happened because then the lights went out of the entire city that afternoon, and it was a blackout, and the city was essentially, thank God it was not like super chaotic. There wasn't like looting or rioting or anything like that, but it was a chaotic time where we didn't know what was going on. Obviously, it's 2 years after 9/11, or just less than 2 years, so we didn't know if we were under attack or what happened, and the stories of the blackout are famous. But I say all that just to respond to this comment from John Lean that we could definitely have fun with LeBron in terms of like he does lie about a lot of things he says he has interest in. I don't think that Jay-Z's one of them. I think he is a true fan. He's been a friend with Jay-Z, again, dating back to his high school days, so much so that Jay-Z brought him up to Rucker Park multiple times, and he was allegedly supposed to play in this street ball game in 2003, which would have been, again, the championship of the Entertainers Basketball Classic at Rucker Park. And he was supposed to be out there, and he was supposed to play. So it's his love for Jay-Z goes a long way. So shout out to John Lean for, of course, contributing to the show. He also said he's gonna shout out to those. I mean, no doubt, shout out to you, John. That always have no problem shouting out people listening to the show. Obviously, that's why I engage with the comments in the comment section. And thank you for reaching out to those Weedos and Coffee Drinkers, man. Let them know we back. Not fully back. And I want to say this also clear. I want to be clear. Like, I'm doing this, which is awesome, and I think it's been fun. And I hope you guys are enjoying it. Maggie Gray and Andrew Perloff, that was a show I was on, Maggie and Perloff show. And unfortunately, of course, the iteration of it on Infinity Sports Network ended, obviously, because of the merger with Westwood One. This is independent of whatever, other iteration Maggie and Perloff is possibly happening. So I don't want, also you guys to think that, oh, well, they said, oh, a new iteration is happening. And it's just, it's just EJ doing his own stream and whatever. If something else is going to happen, it's going to be something that you'll see on their social media. So I keep saying, make sure, I know what they've been saying. I keep just echoing what our whole team's been echoing. Just make sure you keep locked into Maggie and Perloff show, social media accounts, Maggie and Pearl on X, Maggie and Perloff on Instagram. Anything that they would announce about what they're doing moving forward, they will be posting on their social media. So just keep it locked in there. And I'm excited to see what that ends up looking like. But yeah, this is like a whole kind of separate from whatever's happened. This is not, this is what they meant by saying a new iteration of Maggie Pearl, just EJ getting on the stream. Trust me, this is just me doing my own thing and wanting to make sure, again, I get this natural platform to talk to you guys. But this is not, again, this is the end, Maggie and Pearl, that was the end of whatever they're going to do. Something I think is going to happen, and I think you guys will be happy with it. But it's just, like they said, they're working through the tea leaves. They're working through the cross the I's and dotting the T's, as Maggie said. I'm just quoting the things that she has said publicly. And so keep, again, locked in on all things on social media for Maggie and Pearl. Again, Maggie and Pearl on X, Maggie and Perloff on Instagram. And any announcements about the show moving forward and what that show will look like, you can all catch there, which would be very important if you guys want to keep locked in with what's going on with that. But again, shout out to John. Thank you always for supporting the show and being supportive in the comment section. I do definitely appreciate that. I think we got one more thing to get to before we get out of here, man. And I do want to talk about this because this was a big deal last night as well. Jayhawks, Kansas, take down number 2 Iowa State. This was a game that I watched. This was a great ball night. The one thing about, I love football, I do, but I think it's not a secret or not an accident or not like some kind of thing I'm hiding that basketball is my favorite sport. I love talking basketball. If I could talk basketball 24/7, I would, and I'd be totally fine. I do legitimately love football, and I love talking about baseball. I love talking about all the other sports. But one of the things I'm hopeful on this platform as well is I get to talk more hoops with you guys. I think you guys also appreciate what I bring to the table when it comes to talking ball. And last night was a great ball night because we're getting to the point now where, like, all right, like, we're in the playoffs with football season. We'll talk plenty of playoff football this week, and there was some stuff happening in terms of coaching searches and stuff that we'll probably get to later on night 3 of 40 Days and 40 Nights. But this ended up being kind of a exclusive basketball show today. Big games all throughout in both the NBA and college basketball. This one being college basketball, Kansas, a game that I did watch. You know, it's hard because there's so many games happening. You got to kind of like lock in my area. What games am I going to really focus on tonight? And I was like, I'm going to focus on, I want to see Thunder Spurs. Second one was I want to see how Iowa State looks going on the road to Kansas, a team that kind of had been kind of spinning their wheels a little bit. But that was because they did not have their star, Darren Peterson, for a lot of this season, who've been dealing with kind of this weird quad injury that we kind of weren't sure if he was ever going to come back from because he is a stud. And he is essentially locked in to be a top 4 pick, top 3 pick, maybe the number 1 overall pick. So then it became a question about will he come back? Then his parents were saying he's not coming back unless he's 100% ready to come back. We're not going to rush him back because I think they know that there's no urgency. Excuse me, I get a little coffee a little bit. If there's no urgency to have him playing college basketball, he has already shown that he's like, it's like Kyrie Irving. When Kyrie was no 1 pick, then like broke his foot. And he could have maybe came back earlier, but they were like, we don't need to see much from him. He just came back for the tournament, played a couple games, and that was it. Because Kyrie had shown in the 9 games he played that he was the best player in college basketball, and he was a superstar. This was kind of the same deal with Darren Peterson, and we started to wonder if he'd ever come back. He has come back from the injury. He has shown in these last 2 wins Kansas has had, like, I don't think he's 100%. In the game I watched a couple of days ago, against they played TCU in a game that they should have lost. They were down 16 points with 5 minutes left. I think they were down 9 with less than 2 minutes left, and TCU choked the game away. Darren Peterson had to go out of the game because his calf was bothering, his quad was bothering him again, and they were massaging the quad and trying to get him ready. They threw him back in for one final play. He actually ended up making 3 clutch free throws to send the game into overtime. He got fouled shooting a 3. It was the only play he played the last 2 minutes plus overtime of the game was that one play. So he's still been dealing with this thing. He also went for a dunk last night that he missed and then came down and was rubbing they thought his knee, but I think also might have been his quad still. But then he finished the game. He went back and played some more. So I guess he's healthy. I don't know what the deal. Either way, he was sensational again last night, even in a game where he didn't have his biggest scoring game. His impact was still massive. And Kansas, they were able to beat Iowa State in a game that was quite convincing. I think if you're a Kansas fan, I think you probably feel like, okay, some of the concerns we had about this team, you know, they were before the game against, you know, what's the name, TCU, they were coming into the game 10-5. You started to look at them and kind of wonder, like, is this a team that could maybe struggle to stay in the top 25? Are they going to be a low seed in the tournament? Will they make the tournament? I think those were legitimate questions, but I think now you're starting to see this Kansas team come together a little bit. And Darren Peterson, I just want to say in terms of, you're an NBA guy, if you watch college basketball for the purpose of seeing who the next stars are in the NBA, which I know is one of the things that unfortunately we started to kind of lose a little bit thanks to and I say this fully sarcastically, the wonderful leadership of, you know, Adam Silver, who decided, I'm going to start this G League Ignite so we can take some of the best players in college basketball and bring them to the G League, you know, bring more attention to the G League, which was the most idiotic idea I've ever heard. At the very least, at least it allowed players to get paid some money, and that was one thing, and it kind of forced the college basketball, not only forced, but because I think football is really all that mattered, but it did, I think, helping lead to NBA college guys having NIL and getting paid in that regard. But there was a time where it was like, well, the best players aren't playing college basketball again, which was the whole deal with the one and done that actually helped college basketball, was that you could see, even if it was just for 1 year, the Zion Williamsons, the, you know, Kevin Durant's, the Kyrie Irvings, like all these phenom guys, you could see them play 1 year of college basketball and they become stars in the college game, which then helps the NBA because then they become household names, NBA draft time, rookie year. We know who these guys are. Again, Adam Silver, because he's a genius. Again, I say very much sarcastically. He's like, I'm going to take that away because I want to show the NCAA who's boss. And then what ended up happening was you had these NBA draft years where it was either foreign guys being taken high or guys like Jalen Green in the G League, who for like 16-year-old kids on TikTok is very famous because they're following him on TikTok. He's a social media star. But for the regular basketball fan who is just not going to watch G League basketball, they're not tapping in. They're not tapping in. They hear about what he's doing. They may watch a highlight reel here or there. Maybe they'll watch one game, but they're not going to be locked into G League Ignite versus the Long Island Nets or G League Ignite versus the Bay, the Bay Area or Bay Ridge Lakers, whatever the hell they call them. Like they're not doing that. Okay, my guy Manny Rodriguez would kill me for not knowing the names of the G League Lakers team, but they're not doing that. Okay, they're not doing that. So it was stupid. So now that G League Ignite is dead, you still have this overtime elite deal, but I think that also is kind of winding down because guys are now playing it overtime elite, but then going back to college basketball, which is now allowed. There's a lot of weird things going on with college basketball, but now we got the guys, the freshman guys that are playing college basketball and they're stars this year. This is going to be one of the biggest drafts in a long time in terms of the depth of talent. There are legit, I would say probably 5 to maybe even 6 guys who in other years could challenge to be the number 1 pick. And they're all phenomenal. Darren Peterson is one of them. He is so smooth. Just the way his jump shot, the way he can get to his spots and shoot with efficiency. He's shooting something crazy. Like, I think I heard he was shooting like a 60% shooting percentage for a guy who's a guard. He's about 6'5" or so. Handle, sick. I don't think he's not an Anthony Edwards type of athlete, but he's a good athlete. He's the real deal. He is a guy that profiles, I think, to be a 25-point scorer. To me, I think of almost like a Devin Booker type of scorer in the NBA. Absolute stud. He was great after kind of a slow start in this game. And I think what was interesting about Kansas and what we've seen from them the last 2 games in trying to decipher can Kansas turn the season around is the end of the TCU game and then this game against Iowa State. What we saw was Kansas really turned up the screws defensively. And they switched some of their strategy in terms of how they were playing defensively. Typically, they were one of those teams that was trying to switch everything. And I think what they learned was they were switching out of convenience and not out of necessity, or switching for convenience, not out of strategy. And they were getting cooked. They were not playing good defense at all. And we saw some of their struggles defensively because of that. Now, they won 2 out of the last 3. They did lose to West Virginia over the weekend, but big win against Iowa State. A lot of that, I think, had to do with the defense. They turned up the screws. They started not switching everything. Instead, they started switching, as Norm Roberts, who coached, ironically, as an assistant at Kansas for more than a decade. They started switching only the bigs and switching the guards, which I think changed their entire defensive landscape. I think he confused Iowa State a little bit. And as we've now seen for 2 straight home games, Allen Fieldhouse is still a problem. And Allen Fieldhouse still has some magical powers, and teams are going there and they're not playing with the level of confidence that you would expect a team like Iowa State, who is so veteran-laden and is so talented, would. Iowa State was slow to the ball. Iowa State's defense turned to contain the ball was terrible. And I felt like TJ Oskelberger, who is like, cock diesel, as they used to say back in the day. I don't know if they still say that. I mean, he wears a tight polo, and it don't gotta be that tight. Like it's a tight polo, but it's probably still an XL because he definitely gets after it in the gym. I felt like I saw his veins popping out from the stands. That the view that we're seeing from the stands, from down under. You don't even get to see the sideline because the sideline view on television for Allen Fieldhouse is not obviously the view across the court. It is literally the near side view. So you go and see the back of him. But I could see him there. I thought he was going to be the Incredible Hulk. He was going to rip out of that polo and just start attacking his players because you could see how fed up he was with the defensive effort, which was poor, and just the overall effort that was poor. They tried to make a little comeback to start the second half, but once you get behind at Allen Fieldhouse that much, when you're down 20 in the first half, you're not coming back. So Iowa State loses. I don't think this is a huge referendum on Iowa State. I think we've seen that Kansas is a very good team at home. They have not lost at home. The only games that they've had, or I guess they did lose technically to, Duke wasn't at home. So yeah, they haven't lost at home. I think they're going to continue to be a home team. So I think you kind of flush that one. I'm sure Iowa State will have a very difficult practice today. But I think I would still consider them one of the favorites to still get to the Final Four. They have great guard play. They can beat you in multiple ways in terms of scoring. Momcilovic, I think, was really kind of, he was like on a milk carton yesterday. I don't know kind of what his deal was. I didn't think he played well. Blake Buchanan also was kind of on a milk carton. Just was one of those nights, man. It was just one of those nights, but we're getting into some fun college basketball now. It's going to be exciting. We'll be playing college basketball on this show, but if you're an NBA fan, you're a college basketball fan, Kansas as a team, I don't know if you're expecting them to win the national championship. You do want to watch Darren Peterson, though. He is definitely worth the price of admission. He is worth whatever you're paying in your cable service or whatever you're paying on your streaming, YouTube TV, or whatever you got to watch the stuff or whatever you're pirating. He's worth that time, man. I'm sorry, pirating. I know streaming, they don't want to hear that. But however way you can watch Kansas basketball, watch Darren Peterson because he is a stud and he is going to be somebody to watch when we get to NBA draft time. I think that's a good place to leave it, man. I think that's a good place to leave this edition of I want to keep saying New Generation. I'm so used to saying New Generation or WFAN, but this is not either of those. This is 40 days, 40 nights. This is day 3. We're wrapping up here. Again, you like with the content you're seeing. You like the show. Again, give us likes, comments, thumbs up, replies, however way you could engage. Please engage the show in any way possible. That helps us a ton. Make sure you're watching on YouTube. Even if you're not watching on YouTube, still go to our YouTube channel, subscribe. That is where we're going live every day. YouTube, New Generation Media is where you'll find our page on YouTube. Again, if you search 40 Days, 40 Nights, you may find us in terms of a video, but you may not because this is not 40 Days, 40 Nights a movie. This is not 40 Days, 40 Nights My Guy XV. This is a very new venture, obviously, that we're doing. But if you subscribe to the channel, that's where you can get all these episodes. So subscribe to the channel, New Generation Media. We're going live on YouTube, also obviously on X, EJ_Stewart, where we're live there as well. We're also live on IG Live. Shout out to folks on IG Live. Action EJ will find me there. But make sure you subscribe to the YouTube channel, New Generation Media. Again, like, comment, thumbs up, all you can do to help us. We definitely appreciate that. All the episodes of 40 Days, 40 Nights are also obviously archived and put on our channel as well. So if you want to go back and watch the first half hour, for example, I know Rob always say you missed the first half hour. Where the good news is you can scroll back and watch the first half hour of the show. So you want to go back and watch parts of the show. If you left, you want to come back. All the episodes obviously are on our YouTube channel. If you go to the live button, I also post I also adjust our YouTube channel to have a, kind of like a page that you can see the 40 Days, 40 Nights section as well. But make sure you go to YouTube to watch all the episodes. They're all up there. And like I've said before, and we've been posting them every day, the episodes are also going up on our audio channel. So again, we have podcasts as part of New Generation Media. New Generation Podcast Network is where you'll find our podcast that has not just 40 Days and 40 Nights, where every episode that is live streamed is also put up on our podcast channel. You can also listen to the other shows we have. We have Hero Talk, where we talk about all the things happening with the Marvel and DC movie and television world. We also have Imperial Broadcast, which is a Star Wars podcast hosted by my great brothers Shamari and Kendall Stewart. They do a phenomenal job. We love Star Wars. Listen to their Star Wars podcast, Imperial Broadcast. We also have Off Script, which is a wrestling podcast with my guy Lucas Goldman, who will be picking up those episodes later this month. Lucas has been a little tied up with some awesome professional work that I'm really excited for him and really awesome about. So we haven't been able to record a little bit, but we'll be revving that up again soon. So Off Script's a wrestling podcast. You like wrestling, you can listen to those. We do sports talk as well. That'll be revving up as well. We're really, this is going to be a monster year for New Generation Media. So if you want to get all those podcasts, including these episodes, 40 Days and 40 Nights, head to our podcast channel, New Generation Podcast Network, where you find us. Again, find me on social media, Action EJ on Instagram and TikTok, EJ_Stewart on X. This was a fun one. Fun morning. Hope you guys enjoyed it, man. This has been a fun venture so far. We're going to keep it going. Night 3 begins at 6 p.m., so make sure you be there. Be on the YouTube channel, be on my X, be on my IG Live. We'll be streaming live there. And I'll see you later tonight. We'll see what happens later today in the sports world and movie world. I'm sure we'll get some fun news to talk about. But that'll do it for now. I'm EJ Stewart. Hope you guys enjoyed this one. Take it easy.